Hello, everybody, and welcome to House of League for what is not our predictions special, but a transfers special this week with the Challenge Cup coming around and only 2 games to be played. We thought we'd take this opportunity, as we said we would a couple of weeks ago, to delve into the world of the transfers. There's plenty happening at the minute. So to go through all that with me, we have our transfer expert, Josh McAllister. No, we don't. Sorry, Josh. We've got our transfer expert and all-out rugby league editor, Matt Shaw. Matt, you well?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, actually.
Good.
Because
you love a transfer, don't you?
I do love it. Only. Do you know what people say? Oh, all you do is break transfer. But that's what people want to read about.
Yeah, it is what.
So that's why we do it. If people didn't read about it, we wouldn't talk about it.
And as soon as the club completes the recruitment for next season, people just want to say, well, what they're doing in 2017.
Exactly.
2027.
Exactly.
Not 2017, because
do well.
Then they'd be going back in time. Thankfully, Josh McAllister's also here to come up with the snide comments and remind me of the mistakes that I make as we go.
I'm just here for a good time. I'll mention Rome a few times if you want.
God, again.
Yeah, I'll just mention that, I think, across the next 20 minutes.
Okay. Well, that'll be a contribution up there with your usual level then. Right, listen, let's get stuck into it because there is plenty. I've got a little bit of transfer news from the last week, some of it from the last few hours, and then we've got some questions from listeners, watchers, and just generally people who stalk Matt on Twitter. Let's get just stuck in first off with the news that broke this Tuesday morning about Great Britain, England player Dom Young looks like heading out of the Roosters. What's the latest on that, guys? Go on, Josh.
Yeah,
you did the story.
Saw it this morning that he's been told that he's free to leave effectively immediately. Sydney Roosters. He's been dropped to New South Wales Cups across the last few weeks, and it's been reported down under that Newcastle Knights, who never wanted to let him go in the first place, are becoming his potential suitors. That's all from down under. They never wanted to let him go. He signed up with the Roosters on big money. I think it was close to £1 million. I think 200 million Australian dollars. But he's just fallen out of form the last few weeks and found his place lower in the pecking order. So they want to let him go, maybe free up a bit of space. And Newcastle Knights, who I think have only won 2 or 3 games this year, I think they won at the NRL Magic Weekend. They potentially want him back. Interesting.
Let's hope he gets sorted. World Cup getting ever closer. You know, could be a really key player for us out there. So
well, we'd love seeing him in the England top. He'd flying finisher in the England top. It's great to see him in the corner.
Can't see him back at Super League, so I know that's what people will be wondering. Wests have been named as an early potential. I don't think that clubs over here have, or the clubs that would have the financial power to do something probably aren't looking for wingers.
It's a lot of money to spend on a player in his position.
Yeah.
I always say,
when
you're bringing in a marquee signing, it's normally, let's be honest, a half-back. It's a pivot anyway, and a push maybe. You throw it at a prop of a second rower, but a winger, it's a tough call. You've got to have a bit of money to spend, haven't you?
Yeah. I don't see him coming back.
Okay. Moving on, I'm just going to go through the list in the order that I wrote them, which basically means this is scattergun. Parramatta's Wiremu Greg offered to Super League clubs.
Yes.
That's come out, Matt. Do we see that one happening anytime soon?
Well, spoiler, there was a... the agents are at the time of year where they're distributing their off-contract lists, and Wiremu Greg, who is represented by, I think it's Pacific Sports Management, he was one of a number of players on their list. We publicised his name because that feels like, from what I'm hearing, one of the more likely names on that list who could come. You get some of the big superstars on there, but they're not going to.
No,
they're not going to.
No, this is a player that's not played a lot of NRL, played a lot of second grade.
Has been offered Super League clubs in the past. So
yeah,
look, he's a big unit. He's 6'4", 116 kilos. I've had 2 clubs say to me today that they had at Magic that Warrington were having a look at him. I've not had time to actually ring people at Warrington and find out if that's true. We know that they're looking at prop options. They went for Matty Lees and didn't get him. They went for Tom Amon and didn't get him.
And they're obviously losing Paul. Well, we could be losing Paul.
We're going to get onto that in a little bit, yeah. They, openly admitted, people have admitted to me there that Liam Knight's one that they're just tracking. Yeah. Wouldn't be a surprise to me if Wiremu Greg is another who's in that category of potential option for them.
I'm glad you mentioned Liam Knight because it's just popped into my head that we recorded our podcast earlier in the week going through all the big talking points and didn't mention any of the red or yellow cards and sending
There
off
was good reason for that.
Magic Weekend.
Nobody knows what's going on anymore, do they?
I don't have the answers, Smailes.
No, we don't.
I'm trying to...
We don't know what's going on. Let's talk about another prop who has been linked with over here, and that's Castleford Tigers linked to Manly's Toff Sipley for next year, not for now, unlike Greg. Looks like that one could be a goer.
Yeah,
potentially.
Potentially. Few moving parts at Cass because, look, there's a lot of chat about Chris Chester. He's left Lee.
Yes.
And there is chatter that he might be going to Castleford. Now, if that was to happen, Danny Wilson's doing a lot of the signings at the minute. He's part of a group that make these decisions, but Chris Chester might have completely different ideas, or a director of rugby if that's what they're looking to do.
Yeah.
But at the minute, he's someone that they've spoken to a number of times. He quite fancies it, quite fancies the move, a bit of a change of scenery. He's well liked at Manly. I think there would be opportunities for him to stay there beyond his playing career, but for now, there's that link between the two clubs as well, as we know. So not a definite, but there's definitely a decent possibility that one will happen for next year.
Josh, a player that is well liked by a lot of people, and that's Josh Papali at Canberra Raiders, who has hinted that at the end of next season he has hinted.
End of this season.
End of this season,
end of this season. He said at the end of this season he's likely to move on to somewhere else for next season, is what I was trying to say in a very poor roundabout way. That'd be good if we can get him in Super League. And
Absolutely.
Come on. Nearly colours to the mast. Where's he going?
He said his time's coming to an end at Canberra Raiders, didn't he? He said he knows that, and then in that same interview hinted that his playing days could be not in the NRL. Super League be a massive one. I think St Helens are a name that have been linked with him. I imagine if his name goes on a list, a lot of clubs will be after him. But I imagine he would be. Well, you would imagine he'd be a marquee player on big money. He'll be on big money where he is now, but he's a great player. Queensland, Australia, Samoa icon, an international. Great player, influential. Yeah, you'd imagine a lot of clubs might be after him.
If you recall, we broke the story about a week after Vegas that he'd been offered Super League clubs.
Yeah.
Complete transparency. I was told in Vegas that Papali had mentioned to people in Vegas that he'd had conversations with Saints. I haven't heard anything since then. I've had no development on it other than Papali's comments.
Because Josh is right. St Helens not going to be the only ones that'll want him. And if
Might be the only one who have the cap space capable of doing it.
But that was going to be my next question is, everybody might want him, but who can actually afford, and I'm using afford as in not just financially, but in terms of cap space, quota, everything else, who can afford to bring him in?
Yeah, not many, because Wigan don't have a lot of cap space. Leeds don't. We've got more big spenders in the comp now with Lee and Hulk, but Hulk have signed a more, so that rules them out.
Yeah.
Lee, you'd think they'd be looking at halves, so that would rule them out. Warrington, we know him for props, so that's a potential. But
Hull FC,
again, they've not got the quota, unless the regs move around. We'll get into a bit later. Saints seems like Parzy's off contract, similar type of player to Parzy. I think that would be the obvious one. The only thing that caught me out with is he mentioned about playing local league.
Local
didn't he?
league.
Which, after Luke Keary's comments, you hope he's not on about Super League when he's talking about local league rugby, would you? So I don't know. Fair to say that in Vegas he had told people he'd had conversations with Saints.
Okay. I said we'd be rattling through them. Let's get straight into another one. Someone who's well known to everybody over here in Jackson Hastings, who's not been getting a game at the Knights, playing New South Wales Cup. Looks like he's definitely on his way out of the Knights now. Where do we see his next move? Does he stay in Oz or is it back over to Super League? And if it is, does that happen sooner rather than later?
I don't know. I think Jackson Hastings is ready to come back to Super League. personally and professionally.
But it comes back to who fits him in, who's got the money, and who needs him at the minute.
I know that Aaron Bauer at Love Rugby League linked in with Leeds. I hear a little differently that Leeds just don't know where he would fit for them.
Yeah.
Unless Brodie Croft left. But,
because Brodie Croft and Jackson Hastings, your halves.
You've got Jake Connor killing it there at the minute. They love Lockie Miller at fullback.
So you'd have that problem of too many players and not enough positions again.
I get the impression that the only way Jackson Hastings goes to Leeds is if it's a short-term thing for the rest of the year if Matt Frawley was to leave. Matt Frawley's going to be leaving at the end of the year. So there might be scope there, but you still have the same dynamic of where does... From what I've got told from people at Leeds, Jackson Hastings is a player that they rate but just don't quite see where he fits in their team given what they've got right now. The question then goes to where else would you go? Well, we know that Hull KR are looking for a half-back.
Yeah.
We know that Lee are looking for a half-back, but Jackson Hastings is represented by the Ayoubs, which is a conversation we had a few weeks ago where there's been a fallout between those two parties, so it's hard to see him going there. Saints are already overstocked and they can't fit them all in. I thought Warrington was a fit until they signed Mark Sneed. I'm just struggling to see exactly where he goes. I really am struggling to see. I'm sure he will end up here. I just don't know where. I'll be honest.
Yeah, what's for definite is that he's leaving Newcastle Knights. Adam O'Brien said his contract won't be extended beyond this season, so he's definitely on the market. And he's been at West Tigers, obviously, Newcastle Knights. Is there anywhere else for him to go in the NRL? Questionable.
He's always said he wants to come back, and now seems like the perfect time for him to come back. I'm just, for as good a player as he is, and let's be right, he is. He won a Man of Steel. He was fantastic when he was over here. I just don't see many clubs that either have the cap space would be attractive to him. Because, with respect, Huddersfield, Castleford would all love to have him. No, but is he going to go there?
He wants to come and he wants to be challenged to winning a trophy.
But I don't see those clubs either having the cap space or looking for players in his position right now. So a bit of an interesting one, that.
Let's stay on the halfback theme and a story that broke the last few days about Hull KR being interested in Lachlan Lamb from the Lee Leopards. There's always, every season there seems to be some speculation around Lachlan Lamb. Is he going to the NRL? Was he signing for Hull FC? It wasn't that long ago. We know Hull KR are interested in a halfback. Could Lachlan Lamb be that man?
Could be. I think they're at a point where Tyrone May's future is still not completely decided, but they're planning for him to leave. Yeah. So that they're having a look round. And Lachlan Lamb is a player that they've inquired about. That much is true. Not gone any further than that right now, but they have made an inquiry. That is completely fair to say. On the face of it, doesn't meet the eye of being a perfect fit for Hull KR, I don't think. Two left-sided players, two left-footed kickers with Mikey Lewis and
you wouldn't have that controlling half, would you? You'd have two halves that want to break the line and sort of...
Yeah, we all know that Lee were looking for a controlling half to complement Lachlan Lamb. And, when you think back to the fact that KR was supposedly looking at Mark Sneed to be that controlling half for
you're talking
Mikey
about
Lewis.
Different players there.
But at the same time, you've got two X-Factor players in your halves.
Yes.
So
and also... there's not that many out there.
No, that's the other thing.
To pick from. So when a quality one is potentially available...
and they've got to... there's a few things in that as well. Mikey Lewis has just started being linked with the NRL a little bit more. But Lachlan Lamb, to me, on the face of it, would be a Mikey Lewis replacement, wouldn't he? Yeah. By the way, this is not me suggesting Mikey Lewis is going to the NRL. I don't think he is, not for the time being.
There's your headline. Shaw says Lewis to NRL.
Say that.
2026.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a few other names on the market, Chad Townsend, but I think for KR, they're probably looking a little bit younger in this position. They probably need a long-term fix, which is why a Chad Townsend or a Kieran Ferran, another one is on the market, probably doesn't stack up for them.
Do you think conversations Adrian Lamb and Lachlan Lamb have had in recent seasons, I think Lachlan Lamb's number one priority would be going back to the NRL.
And that would be
that's what he's always fancied.
Would be my concern as Hull KR. Because the PNG side's coming in, that just seems like Lachlan Lamb written all over it. Yeah. How long are you going to be able to keep Lachlan Lamb for?
And then even when, Perth coming in 2027.
I tell you what, if you're his dad, you don't mind if he goes to the NRL.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're his dad, you're like, hang on, you're leaving me to go play for another Super League team.
Yeah.
When we're challenging every year for trophies anyway, what are you playing at, son?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's him off the Christmas card list.
I personally don't. If I had to give you a percentage, I'd be under 50%. But it's fair to say they've made an inquiry.
Fair enough. Let's stick with the Lachlan's. Walmsley leaving Wakefield at the end of the year. He's confirmed that. Josh, you talked to me about that one.
Yeah, I think it was Matt that caught up with him in the mixed zone, but he's confirming that he's leaving, I think, because they need to make room, is it, in a quota spot.
Yeah, there's no place for him. He's basically been told.
Yeah, because of the quota rules. He had a really good game at Magic Weekend as well. I think man of the match, 2 tries, two flying finishes. His goal is to remain in Super League. I think he even said it while he was at your club, Halifax, wasn't he? That he wanted to be in Super League. So he's number
Prolific.
one. Yeah, prolific Halifax Panthers star.
Everyone's prolific at Halifax.
64 tries in 58 games he scored.
To be fair, that's
in his
pretty good ratio.
In his UK career, he scored 115 tries in 115 games.
So
it's pretty spectacular.
President of the Lachlan
I was going to say, you are selling him well to other Super League clubs.
I will take my 5%.
And you wouldn't imagine he'd be on. I know he takes up a quota spot, but he wouldn't be on huge money. We were just talking about Don Young.
It's just the quota spot thing that hurts him. And we're interesting with the whole quota rules. You know, he's been here 5 years now, not in Super League for 5 years, but he's been in the country 5 years. Depending on where these quota rules go, let's just say hypothetically, you've been playing in the UK for 5 years, you're no longer a quota player. Lachlan Walmsley suddenly becomes a much more attractive proposition.
He's very attractive.
Could change Wakefield's stance on it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But for now, they've signed Tyson Smoothy, who's a quota player. So one has to go. So,
and to be honest, has got a better name.
It's a cool name.
It's a pretty
I'd be
cool
interested
name.
in where that leads Wakefield, though, because obviously they've got Matty Russell on the cards, who's coming towards the end of his career. So it surely leaves them short in the outside backs department going forward.
Well, let's see what they've got planned. You don't know what they've got planned yet,
well,
Josh.
that's true.
You don't know.
Our friends at Wakefield, we trust. So let's.
Matt.
I tell you what,
Matt caught up with many of them.
They've got a very, very smart recruitment man in Steve Mills there. He's very good. Very, very good.
Josh, I'll stay with you before we come to some fan questions. Saints signing Jacob Douglas from Wigan. Saints and Wigan just seem to be swapping a lot of players so far this year.
Could be 2 for 1 there. Yeah, Jacob Douglas, I think he's played only 4 games for Wigan Warriors. The thing for me is while they were handing out all these 4, 5, 6, 7 year deals to all the players, Jacob Douglas got a 12-month extension. I think that to me says that you've got 12 months to maybe sort of prove your worth, see where you fit, and if you don't, you might move on. St Helens obviously think that they can find room for him in their squad. I'm not sure how St Helens fans will take the signing, given his experience. I say only 4 games. I mean, he's a good player from what I've seen. He's a good player. He's not the biggest. He's quick though, very quick. Yeah, athletic. Well, we'll see how.
Sometimes these players just need an opportunity, and you look at the side that he's trying to break into.
Yeah,
you've got to be pretty special at that age to break into the side. So,
and given that Wigan will have Christian Wade in the next few weeks or June, it probably says that he's not going to get his chance at Wigan for the rest of the season, and then he's on his way out.
All right, let's roll through some questions that came in to us. Some of these people we've already discussed. For example, Jackson Hastings to Leeds. Lee looking for a halfback.
Yeah. I have nothing else to add. They're just looking for a halfback. They might be looking for 2 if Lachlan leaves for LKR.
Right, there we go. See, we said we'd answer your questions. We didn't say we'd answer them brilliantly.
I think Lachlan. Adrian Lamb hinted that Gareth O'Brien might be staying there. Early in the season, I thought he hinted that he was leaving, but I think recently, when he was speaking to press, hinted that he might be there for another 12 months, which might give him another 12 months to go find another halfback again.
Potentially. I think there's a few moving parts there.
Someone's asking you, is Sambu to Wigan still happening?
Yes. I know there's been rumours that he's, coincidentally, as soon as he started playing for Saints, that he now wants to stay. He's going to Wigan.
Right, okay. James Bell, quota player, yes or no?
Comes back to the quota regs. Back to that. We will know by the end of the month. It's big for Hull FC because if he comes off, they can keep Liam Knight.
Yeah.
If he doesn't come off, they can't keep Liam Knight unless they move someone else on, which they don't want to do.
Yes.
So, wait and see. As it stands, we just don't know. But there's scope for that to change.
That will be big for Hull FC. Do you think FC signed, they haven't signed him just because they thought that the quote rules was happening. But do you think they've signed him with that in the back of the mind that we might get a little bonus here? Because
With a little bit of hope.
yeah, with a bit of hope.
Yeah, I think so, because there is a fair appetite across the clubs to relax them.
Yeah.
And he would be one who, on the face of it, would be the first
I
to be relaxed.
I think we've got to do something, especially if we talked about on the other pod with Perth coming in and the threat of losing even more players to the NRL.
I say people keep forgetting the PNG team coming in as well. You've got 2 teams coming in. And let's not forget how many PNG players are in this comp.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sticking with Hull FC, someone's asking what's the chances of FC getting Connor Bailey in early?
They asked, I don't think, mind me saying this, they asked, they're after a back rower because they've got injuries there, haven't they? All sorts of problems. York wanted a significant 5-figure fee, and Hull didn't think it was a reasonable proposal, so they said no. As far as I'm aware, nothing has, and that was a while back. That was after the first Hull derby, which was the start of last month.
It's unlikely to change at this moment in time.
I would say.
Wakefield Trinity's plans with Walmsley leaving, as we just discussed.
That was me that tweeted you, actually.
Was it actually?
Might as well have been.
Well, they want a prop. The next thing for them is they want a prop, and this is probably why the Walmsley thing doesn't make sense now. We know they went in for Matt Croker, came fairly close to getting Matt Croker as well, to be fair, from Newcastle Knights, but he's re-signed there now. But they're looking overseas for another player, so another overseas player will have to go beyond Walmsley. But that is where their plan is. Wakefield's plan at this point is to sprinkle some real top quality on what they've already got. Got a young team that are really improving. They just want 1, maybe 2 high-class additions to really push them forward again. That's their plan. Who they go, I haven't got names for you, but they're in that field of looking for established NRL players in that prime age of 25 to 28.
Okay. Put my teeth in. The whole Lloyd situation at Leeds Rhinos. What's going on there?
All the sounds I have are that he's re-signing, whichever way.
So he's staying?
He'll be staying at Leeds. That's all the sounds I've got. He's staying at Leeds.
Okay.
St Helens were in for him, but he'll be staying at Leeds.
I'll just get, because Josh hadn't talked for a minute. And
Yeah, is there a question asking me how... No, I'm enjoying this. Asking me how Rome was or anything like that?
No, but I'm going to follow up with how good is that for Leeds if Lloyd stays in?
Yeah, great news for them, isn't it? Great player, especially after losing Morgan Gann as well, which they were very disappointed about. I think we must have talked about it in the podcast. So yeah, just quickly, because I know you're rapping through them, it would be great news for Leeds Rhinos and Leeds Rhinos fans.
Someone else just asking, any other news at Hull FC in terms of recruitment plans?
Not massive. They've done a lot now, haven't they? They've rattled
they got in
through.
early. They got in early.
And rightly so. I think for them now, it probably goes back to retention. Jack Ashworth's one that springs to mind that they'll have to have a look at. It'll be a cap space thing, whether they can do it. The whole quarter thing will be attributed to that, because if they can, they need to keep Knight, who's probably on decent money. I don't think immediately there's anything happening. The quarter situation will then determine a lot of what happens after that at Hull FC.
You mentioned retentions. We've had questions with regard to Warrington and what's happening with retention. You got Ty, King, Vaughan, Musgrove. Where are we at with the Wolves at the minute with their plans?
I get the impression Toby King will stay. Was a little bit of interest. It's not really escalated into a great deal more, so I think he'll end up staying at Warrington. Rod Ty, I think, will leave. Paul Vaughan's an interesting one. I thought there was no chance for him staying at the start of the year. In fact, there was talk of him going in the off-season. Didn't materialise. Then there was just a few sounds that maybe Warrington will look to keep him on. But then more recently, he started being offered around to clubs again. Suggests to me he's on the way out. Musgrove, I find it hard to see him stay when he's been in and out of the side. And we know very openly they're looking for quarter props. So I would say Ty will go, King will stay, Musgrove more than likely will go, Vaughan probably depends on what they can do on the overseas recruitment front.
Well, it was only a few weeks ago, I asked Sam Burgess about his recruitment options, and he said that sort of ongoing, there was nothing concrete just yet. Well, you need to get sort of in concrete. I mean, he might have just been playing,
Well, we're into
cards
May.
close to his chest. Yeah, but there has to be some sort of going-ons there, don't they, to know what you're doing next year.
You expect so, but then it wouldn't surprise me if he just didn't want to tell you. But there we go.
Thanks, James.
Listen, that wraps it up. Hopefully we've put you in the picture with regards to some of the big transfers that are being discussed and some of the plans that the clubs are making for 2026 and even potentially this season. We'll be back next week with the usual couple of pods, including our beloved predictions pod. So until then, thanks for being with us, everybody. We'll see you soon.